Hello, my name is Jose Batto. I live in San Jose, California, but I was originally from the Philippines. My story, or what I like to call my great challenge, started in October of 2006 when I was diagnosed with liver cancer. It was a double whammy for me because my wife Helen died of liver cancer just 3 years earlier. Now, the doctors at the University of California, San Francisco Medical Center, or UCSF for short, said that I was a good candidate for a liver transplant because I was in relatively good shape at that time, physically, that is. So, when they asked me, but they said that there are serious risks involved with with a liver transplant, excuse me, and that includes death. But when they asked me what I wanted to go through with it, I did not hesitate and said, yes, let's go ahead. So they put me on a waiting list for a liver. Now, the treatment started immediately. About a month later, from the time that I was diagnosed, they did chemo directly to my liver. They also did a procedure called radiofrequency ablation, and what that simply is that they tried to burn the perimeter of the tumor. Now, those two procedures were meant not to cure the cancer, but rather to prevent it, to contain it, to prevent it from spreading. Because if it spread to other organs, then I would no longer be eligible for a liver transplant. Excuse me. 5 months later, in March of 2007, a liver became available. So I rushed to the hospital and was prepared for surgery. Now, prior to that time, there had been many tests, and all of those tests showed that everything was okay. However, when they opened me up, my heart started acting abnormally. So the doctors were concerned that I might have a heart attack on the operating table. So they aborted the procedure and they just closed me back up. About a month later, in May of 2007, another liver became available. And so then I told my children and the doctors that if the same thing happened to my heart again, to just go ahead with the surgery. If they're able to revive me, well, great. But if not, then que sera sera. There's really nothing that I can do about it. Fortunately, the operation was successful. After about 13 hours of surgery, I had a new liver. Now, 3 weeks later, while I was still in the hospital, some complication arose. I had an infection, and so the doctors had to operate and remove the infected tissue. That left a hole in my chest about 2 inches wide and about 5 inches long. They said that it would close after a while. Yes, it did close, but it took about 6 or 7 months for that hole to close. Now, other complications arose. My kidneys were shocked, so I had to undergo dialysis for several weeks. Also, fluid developed in my lungs, and so they had to drain it. It seemed that whatever could go wrong went wrong. I was in the hospital for a little over 2 months. 1 month I was in intensive care. When I entered the hospital, I weighed 152 pounds. When I left the hospital, I was weighing 108 pounds. So I lost about 45 pounds during my stay. When it came time for me to get up and walk around, I couldn't even stand up. It took me about a week to learn how to walk again. Then I left the hospital and I was recovering quite well. But about 3 months later, I had this severe pain in my back. As it turns out, some of the medication, the anti-rejection medication that were given to me weakened my bones. And so then I had multiple fractures in my spine. So far, I've had 2 spine surgeries. So it was quite an ordeal, but I'm still hanging in there. Now, what were the challenges that I faced? When I was diagnosed with cancer, I became instantly aware of my mortality. There were many questions. Will I live? For how long? Will the transplant be successful? Will I recover? Well, some of those questions really are impossible to answer. But I think that the fact that I'm still around answers some of the other questions. One of the main issues also was who will take care of me? I live by myself. But that didn't turn out to be any problem. My children, two of my sons live in San Jose. My daughter lives in Sonora. They were with me in the hospital 24/7 for the 2 months that I was there. And then when I left the hospital, instead of going to a convalescent home, I lived with one of my sons. It happens that he and his wife are both nurses, so I had the best of care there. Support group, the best support group that I had were my family and my friends, through their encouragement and their prayers. I also attended a couple of meetings of the UCSF Liver Cancer Survivors Group. Now, I did a lot of research, of course, regarding my illness, and I found out that there are a lot of resources available to cancer patients. First and foremost are their own doctors and the hospitals that they work at, like Stanford, UCSF, and also other cancer organizations like the American Cancer Society. This particular organization, the Asian and Pacific Islander American Health Forum, the Asian and Pacific Islander National Cancer Survivors Network, are good, are good resources. And of course, the internet. The internet is replete with tons of information regarding all kinds of cancer.